We gotta show some love to the sculptors. What's going on, everybody? GemMint back again. On a recent live stream, I talked about wanting to make a video highlighting the sculptors from Sideshow, from XM, from Prime 1, and more. Sculptors that make some of the beautiful statues that you see in this collection, and I figured I'd start with Daniel Bell. He's probably one of the more well-known names when it comes to the hobby, and I got into statues coming from the comic book world where we follow artists and writers, and I thought it was cool to kind of see that same trend in the statue collecting hobby, but those names don't really translate over to the comic book world, so I thought I'd start with Daniel Bell. We're going to highlight all the pieces that he's done for Sideshow. He made his name doing fan art early on, and then he went exclusive with them some years back. We're going to start with the first piece, and that's his Captain America premium format. I reviewed this piece when it first came out, and although it wasn't a huge statement piece, they kind of played it safe, but at the same time, it was one of the, if not best, quarter scale Captain America on the market at the time. They did a more modern take on the uniform, they added dirt to it and on the shield as well. It would later get a companion piece with the Black Widow premium format with matching Ultron bases. After that, we would get the Daredevil premium format, and this one kind of followed suit with Captain America, a more modernized take, but still felt like the comic book version of Matt Murdock. The mixed media with the billy clubs was a nice touch in how it wrapped around his back. They would actually go on to make a Shadowland variant of this one as well later on. The next one up would be that statement piece, in my opinion. You've got Thor, the Breaker of Brimstone, and this still might be the best quarter scale Thor statue on the market right now. This one was essentially a diorama, him crashing down on Surtur with this dynamic pose, ready to bring the hammer down as he's flying through all those flames. Everything from the armor to the skin tone to that portrait were highly detailed, although some did have a slightly off paint job that gave him a purplish tone. Other than that, amazing piece. So how do you follow up a statement piece like the Thor Breaker of Brimstone? You hit him with another statement piece, the Gladiator Hulk, an enormous diorama fighting one of the beasts from Sakaar. Not only was this a great piece in its detail and its paint applications, coming off the heels of a lackluster Hulk premium format, this one seemed to correct all the problems that piece had. One thing you can never have is too many Wolverine statues. He's probably the character that has the most statues in the hobby, but what you don't see too often is a Logan premium format, and that's what we got here from Daniel Bell. An aggressive pose that screams Wolverine in this bar stool fight scene. He's got his left foot on top of one of those bar stools, and the muscle definition is just really what sets this piece apart. It did have mixed media elements on this piece. The pants were made to look like denim, but it had not only a great sculpt, but amazing paint job that showed the blood on his hands as his claws are retracting. Now, this was during the time when Sideshow was really cranking out a lot of their quarter scale X-Men pieces, and Daniel Bell added Colossus to the mix. Kind of went a little bit safer on this one, a little bit more simple, but I really love how clean the lines are on his organic metal, on his arms and his legs. The muscle definition looks great. He's got that bigger build like you would expect from Colossus, and it had that Danger Room base which tied in with other pieces from that line. Overall, great piece. It just really wasn't a statement piece like some previous ones that we've seen. Next up, we would see something new, a 1/3 scale Wolverine bust by Daniel Bell. We did do a review on this one as well. I think we reviewed every single statue that's on this list, but an awesome idea, something that was affordable, something that didn't take up too much space. People love the sculpt. A lot of collectors were saying that they should have had this torso on the Wolverine premium format body to essentially have the best Wolverine statue. The bust really allows you to highlight the details on Wolverine's arm. You can see the hair sculpted in, of course the muscle detail, all of the work that went into the gloves to make it look realistic, and of course the portrait with the gritted teeth, 5 o'clock shadow, and furrowed eyebrows. Great looking bust and something new from them. I was super stoked when this one was announced. One thing that I'm a sucker for is futuristic versions of some of my favorite characters, Spider-Man 2099 and Batman Beyond. There was a Batman Beyond premium format that came out a few years ago to go with Sideshow's DC Comics quarter scale line. We did do a review on this one, and I think it's hard to really nail this character because he's so iconic from the animated series. You really just want to see that blacked out costume with the red emblem, but they chose to go realistic and modernize the Batman Beyond outfit just a little bit, giving it seams and textures, as well as more definition to the portraits. It was a cool piece, love to see these characters get the treatment, but I really just love that animated series look. After years of making quarter scale DC comic statues, we finally got a Flash premium format. He killed the pose on this. You can see the inspiration grabbed from Olympic runners to make sure he got the detail and anatomy correct. I've seen other statues where it didn't look correct, having the arms in the wrong directions and what have you, but this one looks realistic. The statue really embodies the Flash as he's ready to take off back into the time stream. We would get another 1/3 scale bust from Sideshow and Daniel Bell in the form of Batman. This one was unique because he had his entire arm in the bust as well, getting ready to launch that Batarang. This may be the only one that I haven't reviewed out of all of these statues, but it does look good. You've got the flowing cape on one side, you've got his arm with the Batarang in the other, Bat emblem looks great, you got the gritted teeth 5 o'clock shadow portrait, and the detail in the cowl is just spot on. Now, for the longest time, there was only one quarter scale Silver Surfer statue that was available, and then there were tons of fan art pieces that were released until we finally got the Silver Surfer maquette. Now, this was a tricky one. How do you capture this piece, which has been done so many times, like I mentioned, in that fan art world? How do you make it something new and refreshing? Well, the approach here was to go in a totally different direction than most of those other pieces that I mentioned. It's Silver Surfer coming through a portal. Only has half of the board in the shot because the rest of it is still behind him ready to come through, but he's got a very commanding and stoic-like pose. It almost looks like an Oscar, or he's bringing all the groceries in one shot, which is going to bring us on over to the Batman Rogues Gallery for the Bane maquette. This one had some big shoes to fill. Sideshow had already released a quarter scale Bane, and it was kind of everything you really wanted in a Bane statue. This one is a little bit more of a throwback, almost like the original first appearance of Bane, where he didn't have such a monstrous build. He had more of a wrestler build. He was still huge, but still within the realm of reality. The sculpt was great on this piece. It had a smaller footprint as far as the base, and the paint applications really took it to another level, also playing with blood, if I recall, on his knuckles and other places. Plus, the glow-in-the-dark tubes holding that venom was cool as well. If you guys are into exclusive variant comic books, you got to check out THATSPIDERMANBOOTH.com. They have a monthly subscription box that gives you 5 comics each month, $100 worth of retail value for just 50 bucks. But in addition, you also get a variant that's exclusive to this box. And for July, we have an Essentia issue 18, an Alex Regal Akira homage, limited to just 600 copies. Head on over to ThatSpidermanBooth.com so you can check out their subscription box today, which is going to bring us on over to the Dictator Victor Von Doom, the Dr. Doom maquette, a much needed follow-up to the previous premium format. This one has what Daniel Bell brings to statues. It really embodies the character. It feels like Doom, not just some guy standing with his arms crossed. Sculpt looks great, huge fabric cape, which some people, that's a hit or a miss, but you can't deny the quality and the thickness of that cape and the way that you can really pose it with or without it. I do think they did a good job matching the cape with the sculpted hood, but I could understand why that would turn some people off. Next up, we got one from the Spider-Man Rogues Gallery, Cletus Cassidy Carnage. This piece is universally loved. What a menacing piece. Again, really embodying the character of Carnage. He looks fierce, he looks menacing. The detail on the skin and on the symbiote are incredible. The right arm forming into a blade just like he does in the comics, and the tendrils flailing from his back, really nailing that red part of the costume that almost looks like muscle with no skin. All right, next up we have an homage from Daniel Bell, a recreation, if you will, of a classic comic book cover. We have Batman, The Dark Knight Returns, paying homage to the classic Frank Miller comic book cover. Batman jumping in the sky, the lightning bolt crashing behind him. I think this statue really does that cover justice, and that's kind of a tough thing to tackle. That could have gone either way, but this one takes everything about that cover, which is essentially a silhouette, and brings it to life, and it looks spectacular. Huge lightning bolt with a light up and an entire quarter scale large Batman character floating in midair in the center. The texturing, the battle damage, and some help from that paint department really put this piece on another level. And then we're going to get into the last 3 pieces which have not been released at the time of recording. However, I have seen prototypes of 2 of them. First, we have the Joker premium format, and how do you tackle the Joker? First of all, it's an iconic character, so you got to get it right, but it's also been done so many times. Really am a big fan of the pose of this piece, the playfulness of it, yet still dangerous, as he's grinning and waiting for you to grab his hand. The only thing here is he really should have had this mirrored, and he's reaching out to shake you with his right hand, because who shakes with their left hand? That's a red flag anyway, but that is also the Joker. Recently just saw Across the Spider-Verse. I already got the Gwen Stacy premium format, aka Ghost Spider. Miles Morales is on the way, and a new quarter-scale Spider-Man that goes with that line. Now that line all has a perspective type of base, doing away with that destroyed construction site scene that we've seen so many times and doing something different. At first, I wasn't really feeling it, but when I saw them all together at Comic-Con, I really started to get it. And it's almost like an Amazing Spider-Man 300 homage, a little bit with that pose. And speaking of the Spider-Verse, the last one, which I already made a whole video on this one, is the Spider-Man Noir, a character that I'm not a huge fan of, but I found myself loving the statue. I love the whole dynamic of this piece and how it flows, the symmetry, if you will, of him balancing off of this tilted piece of building. It's funny, after seeing Across the Spider-Verse and how Spider-Man Noir didn't play as big of a role, it really makes me want to see a Spider-Man 2099, maybe even a Scarlet Spider, dare I say Spider-Punk statue from Sideshow. Which ones are your favorite? Let me know in the comments down below. I appreciate you guys watching. Stay minty fresh. Peace.